this is Sitima Fowler, co-CEO of Capstone IT and founder of RochesterRockstars.com. Today I'm here with Sandy Waters, who is a co-host of the show Spezzano and Sandy on 98.9, and she also has her podcast called Seven Figures, Smart Money Strategies for Women. So I am so excited that we're talking to you today because Sandy has one of the most lovable and relatable personalities, and I think you're using it so smartly to market everything you're doing. So you guys are in for a treat. This is going to be awesome. Oh, so Sandy, thank you for joining Rochester Rockstars. The first question I wanted to ask you is, a lot of people want to, have a presence like their own talk show and their own radio shows. You actually have a show that you're co-hosting. So talk about that journey. Like, did you always want to be a radio talk show host?
Not in a million years. If you had told me this is what I would be doing today, I would laugh and be like, are you for real right now? Totally not on my radar. I kind of just fell into it. And it's funny because along the way, people pushed me out of my comfort zone because I wasn't the one to push myself out of my comfort zone. I like to stay in my comfortable little bubble, right?
But you allowed yourself to get out of the comfort zone and
I had no choice.
Okay.
Really? Throughout, and now that I look back, I'm like, oh, okay, that's why they did that. And thank God they did that because this is where I am today. So I went to school to SUNY Brockport with the intention of being a TV reporter. One day, walked by the college radio station at the time, saw a friend that I knew from forever ago, gave me a tour. Do you want to help us out? Sure. And working there, somebody else there said, hey, I got you an internship at PXY, okay? You start Monday. And I'm like, what? And I did ask for an internship. Wasn't even going to show up on that Monday, but I did. Again, pushed me out of my comfort zone, right? Showed up. And then one of the managers, after working there for a while, one of the managers said, okay, you're going to run the board for Casey Kasem and you're going to do an occasional weather break. I'm like, I'm going to what? Go on the air? Again, pushing me out of my comfort zone. And thank God, for those people. Like, I'm so forever grateful for everybody who pushed me out of my comfort zone because it got me to where I am today.
Wow. So you wanted to be on TV.
Yes.
And the path led you to the talk shows. So it's interesting how you might have your life planned out and certain things, but if you are open, if your mind is open to opportunities, they're all around you and kind of like follow the heart, follow what's coming.
And it wasn't an easy transition from working at the station to being on the air, on the morning show rather, because it was an established show at that time. While I was working at the station, I learned every aspect of the station. I just wanted to absorb as much as I could. So when I graduated from college, they hired me to be the utility person. They kind of created a position for me. So I would fill the void whenever there was one. So when they were looking for somebody to work with Scott in the morning, I was like, me. And I did not get the job the first time around. And I was devastated. But I was like, okay, I'll just show up and say yes. And that's the mentality that I've always had, that I still have. It's like, okay, I'm going to show up, say yes, and figure it out later, right? How to make it happen. So they were looking for a co-host again, second time around now. Someone suggested that I send my boss a cookie cake and write on the cookie cake, Spezzano and Sandy in the morning. Again, pushing me out of my comfort zone, right? Wow. That's pretty bold. So not my character. But I did it, and after I sent the cookie cake, I went to the boss, and he was like, I was waiting for you. You absolutely have the job. And I was like, okay. I mean, it's crazy how sometimes we're so nervous to make these bold moves. Especially I was very nervous because I was in fear of failing. And that was a big thing for me. If I didn't think I was going to get it perfect, I wouldn't even try. So for people to push me along the way and say, no, I believe in you, you can do it, that really taught me, you know what, who cares if you fail? Whatever, you're going to fail.
Exactly.
And just go for it and do your best and be genuine when you're doing it. And
So there's a couple of things that I took from that, what you're saying. One is, Whenever like I have ever taken a job, I have forgotten about my responsibilities and just learned and absorbed everything about every position. I was never handed a promotion. I feel like I always knew more, and it just naturally came to me because I just took it upon myself to learn everything about that job, even though it wasn't part of my job responsibility, everything about the company. And then the second is that, even though you got rejected, you didn't give up. You kept going, and you were like, okay, I want this job.
Harsh, by
well,
the way.
yeah. Well,
I
okay,
was,
sorry. I don't need to bring those painful memories back again. But I love the cookie idea. You said, I want this. I'm going to take this. This is mine.
Which
I
is
love that.
crazy. Yeah.
So hopefully you've gone over the rejection. Sorry to bring up
I'm
those
over
feelings.
it.
Okay.
I got the gig now.
So let's talk about the podcast, because
Okay.
you have the gig, but you want more. So you decided you're going to have this podcast, and I'm sure it's not because you have all this extra time in this world. So there's a reason to the madness. So talk about why this podcast and what is the synergy with everything else you're doing.
Well, now I've evolved into pushing myself out of my own comfort zone. So in the world that we live in, especially in radio, we try to be everywhere, right? We have to evolve, because if we just, get stuck where we are, complacent, we're never going to grow.
Mm-hmm.
So the world we live in, podcasts exist. Social media is there. So we have to embrace it, whether we want to or not. Does it feel uncomfortable? Sure. Are we going to try it? Okay, fine. So I thought, well, my character on the show is Scott teases me for being cheap. I like to call it frugal.
Okay.
But that comes up in conversation a lot on the show. So I thought, well, the world of podcasting is here. Let me extend my character on the show that's established on the show and take it into the podcast world. Because I am truly, genuinely very passionate about financial knowledge. Not necessarily teaching people how to day trade and whatever, but just to have confidence in their knowledge of finance. Just feel comfortable, like, yeah, I'm going to be okay because I have a good understanding. And especially women. Women are not engaged enough with their finances because it's intimidating. And it shouldn't be. It's very simple, actually, to understand your finances. So that's what drew me to the idea of a financial podcast. And we talk about the podcast on the show. I bring the show on the podcast. So there is some synergy there. It's almost one and the same.
Do you feel like for the station it's bringing in additional revenue because you have the podcast, you have the show, and they kind of go hand in hand?
Absolutely. So for the podcast, I mean, it's cool because they always say, the riches are in the niches. So the podcast world is so saturated. Everybody, I should say, thinks they can be a podcaster, right? Because anybody pretty much can. But the successful ones are the ones that have a focus. So because this is actually the only financial podcast in Rochester, in upstate New York, a lot of companies see the value in that. And because there is a radio component to this as well, it brings a lot of value to a client to be, affiliated with the podcast, because they are going to get some, radio exposure as well.
That's interesting because, at Capstone, we're like the outsourced IT department for businesses.
Yeah.
So when we started RochesterRockstars.com, I got the question a lot, like, why do you do these interviews?
Yeah.
And I think when we started, it was more of a philanthropic, there was so much doom and gloom about Rochester, and we said, how can we highlight and bring a positive where we're teaching other entrepreneurs, hey, there are a lot of successes going on in Rochester and here's some inspiration.
Yeah.
But then it turned into a business synergy because now people associate the videos with Capstone and me, and it's all tied together.
Absolutely.
It's all tied together. So for those of you who are afraid to kind of have that kind of publicity and podcast, putting yourself out there, it can have a direct effect on your revenue and in your own business. So which brings me to the next topic. If somebody wanted to do their own podcasting, to help their business and put themselves out there, how do they get started? What do they do? What do they need?
It is very simple. I mean, you don't need a studio. You don't need, I worked so hard to get my home studio all perfect. And then I'm like, I see some of these podcasters and they have one little portable podcast device recording, and a simple mic. Some podcasts that you hear don't even have the best quality, which drives me nuts. But the focus is the what makes a successful podcast is, like I said, the riches and the niches. You have to have a clear, defined focus. What is the void that you're trying to fill for people? Why are they going to pick your podcast over the millions that are out there? You know, you have to talk to them. What do they need? What information are they going to get from you? Whether it's a nice, clean, polished podcast or not, you have to offer something that they can learn from it when they listen to it.
Yeah. So they don't need any specialized equipment or a studio to get started?
Not really.
Okay.
I'd like to tell you need to invest in something like this.
Right.
But not really.
Okay.
I mean, the better quality, obviously, the more professional it sounds. But there are successful podcasts out there that it's very simple equipment that you can just go.
So if somebody doesn't have the finances to buy a lot of equipment, you're saying don't let that hold you back.
Right.
Focus more on the content. If you can deliver something of amazing value to your potential clients or prospects, that's more where your time should be spent. Like figuring out what kind of content that people may not know already.
I mean, it's crazy that our phones, the audio capabilities and quality on our phone is, you know, in the beginning, sure. If you're really focusing on the content, you know, as long as you can, it's not too distracting, the quality of it. But yeah, as long as the content is good and you're inviting good, you know, guests in, or you're putting out good information, then sure.
And then what do? Do you like upload it to like the iPhone podcast area, or like how do you get it out there?
So that side, thank heavens I have Entercom to help me, because they do all that part of it on the corporate level, you know, connecting with iTunes. And we have radio.com is our platform where a lot of really cool podcasts are. But, you know, I mean, even if you want to start off small and just post it to Facebook or, you know, social media.
Oh, okay. So you just record it and put the recording.
You can, but again, I mean, you're probably like, duh, there's an easy way to do this that I just don't know. I haven't had to look into it because corporate kind of does it for me. But because there's so many podcasts out there, I'm sure there's a simple way to connect with iTunes or whatever.
You're so amazing. Oh my God.
Am I?
This station is so lucky to have you. I love
Sitima.
your personality. I mean, I love go-getters like this. You're like, you know, what's out there? Let me just go.
So now everybody's going to be sending cookie cakes.
I know.
Right?
I love the cookie cake idea. Oh my
thought
God. If you got nothing else out of this, do the cookie cake if you really want something.
I was so nervous that I'm like, this is so cheesy. But it worked.
It worked. Wow. So cheesy's good if you get nothing out of this. So this is awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for watching. If you want to look at other videos just like this on different topics, go to www.rochesterrockstars.com. Before we go, Sandy, do you have any last words of advice for our viewers?
To be successful, I know you have a great product, a great service. To be successful, you have to be genuine. You have to truly, truly believe in what you're doing. But you know how a lot of people say, follow your passion and the money will come? I am a believer in tweaking that a little bit. I've heard a lot of people say it, and I'm jumping on this bandwagon, is follow the opportunity and bring your passion along. So start looking for where's the void, where's the opportunity, and then get passionate around that, or whatever passion you have tied into it.
Make sure that somebody wants your product or service, like there's a need for it.
Yeah, because I could be passionate about, I don't know.
Stamp collecting?
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to generate revenue, but if there's a void of stamps, then I don't know. Bad example, but you get what we're saying.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us and for your time. I appreciate it. And if you want to be profiled, give us a call. Or you can go to www.rochesterrockstars.com, and there's a form on there. Fill it out, and hope to see you soon.